Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. We organized this webinar to talk, to debate, and to share some best practices and tips and experiences, hands-on experiences on how to adapt your apps and your games for great customer experiences around the world in new different markets. We will cover some topics related to culturalization, localization strategies and offerings and different monetization around the world. And that's why I'm here with this amazing and really international panel. I'm Leandro Santos, Senior Growth Manager at Winclap. And with me, I have Dina Rasdan. She's a Product Manager at Tamaten. Then I have Sebastian, and I'm gonna ask you help for your last name, but he's a game producer at Nanobit. And then we got Ludmila Veloso, or how we call her, Luigi. She's the VP of Operations of Airbrush from Meitu, a Chinese company. And I want you guys to introduce your companies. Dina, if you want to follow it up with Tamaten.
Yeah, sure. Hi. First of all, I'm Dina, Product Manager at Tomatum. Been at Tomatum for 4 years and a half now. At Tomatum, we localize game by partnering up with international studios and developers. We localize their games to make them culturally relevant to the MENA region specifically. We transform the game to be suitable for the Arab gamer. In addition to that, we do user acquisition, we do all the marketing in-house, we do the distribution, the monetization, customer relations, even support and whales management. We have over 100 million downloads and more than 2 million monthly active users. So that's Tomatum in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. Sebastian, about Nanobit.
Yeah. Hello, well, I'm Sebastian Shushnyar, it's pronounced, I know it's hard, yeah, but it's a Croatian surname. So, hello, I work as a game producer in Nanobit. I've been in the company for a little bit more than 3 years, during which I worked on some of our projects such as Hollywood Story and Fashion Queen project with Dina here from Tomatum. About Nanobit, well, it's a game development and publishing company from Croatia. It was started in 2008 and it grew to a team of more than 120 people. We have more than 30 apps and games made in 12 years. And actually, we are mainly focused on our lifestyle and narrative games such as My Story, Hollywood Story, and Taboo, which gathered more than 130 million downloads over the past years. So yeah, that's in short.
Amazing. Airbrush, Luigi.
Hi everyone, my name is Ludmila Veloso. No one calls me Ludmila, so you can call me Luigi, or Luigi if you want to be Chinese. You can. Well, it's better to be careful with my name in Chinese. I'll tell you later. So Airbrush is a photo editing app. We are an app inside Meitu. Meitu is the 4th biggest Chinese developer right now. We were the 2nd biggest IPO after Alibaba in Hong Kong stock option market. Airbrush has around 66.5 million MAU on Android and the same approximately in iOS. We are in several different countries and that would be all.
Awesome. And just lastly, before we start, at Winclap, we help mobile games and apps advertisers build and brand successful user acquisition, retention, and reactivation strategies across multiple channels. With our proprietary technology, we centralize all the information coming from the channels. We analyze it with an AI engine that we have built internally, and with our customer success and creative studio, we work as an extension of our clients' team, executing and producing the creatives, localizing the services, and so on. So being that said and everyone introduced, we can start with the debate and with the content of the webinar itself. Just to remind it, everything is being recorded and we will send it to all the register afterwards. And also you have a question Q&A box in the bottom, so feel free to ask questions and we will cover it at the end of the webinar. So to start, in general, for you all guys, what is app localization and how does localization differ across regions? You got experiences all over the world, so this is a good question for the three of you. I don't know, Sebastian, if you want to start.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think localization actually differs for every country, I would say, because of the phrases which are characteristic for specific cultures or languages. Some languages are using a lot of English words in their daily speeches, some are using none. So the way it works for us is localizing all the text by a native speaker. So we proofread it with another native speaker as well, so we double check it. Also, some languages have longer words, for example, German. So we have to adapt the game in game. It's not only translating the text, it's like a matter of a UI and art, because some word in English, it fits in a certain button, which is on screen like that, but German word is bigger and it doesn't fit. So we have to find solutions for that as well. Same goes for languages that use a lot of words in places where we use only one in English. So the menus have to change as well, the animations and stuff like that regarding those menus. For example, when we did the localization for Fashion Queen, which Dina will tell more about, we had to adapt not only the text, but all the art and the UI, especially for the Arabic alphabet. So yeah, in collaboration with our partners, we usually do the translation and the art UI localization. So it's a whole package. And in some countries, we even needed to modify the character model for the player, like in Japan, for example. For Hollywood Story, we did the Italian, Spanish, French, German, Russian, Japanese, and Portuguese in a matter of less than 1 year, I think. And it all, each of these languages showed like a good potential and a good ROI on the campaigns. So we are really satisfied that we did a lot of languages. So it's in short from me, yeah.
Amazing. Luigi, for you, what is app localization and what's your experiences from Airbrush and the photo editor?
So I actually started doing localization for other apps inside Tool. I'm a Portuguese native speaker, and actually my first mission was to actually audit and check all the problems we would have with Portuguese, and also explaining Portuguese is not Spanish. That's like a war I think everyone has in Latam. We don't speak Spanish in Brazil. We actually speak Portuguese. From that experience, it was actually the beginning of all the localization wave, because then we started looking at localization as something that actually matters, and it's actually profitable, because we saw the results of having a proper localization for Portuguese. And then we started hiring local native speakers, because as Sebastian just said, it's very important that you actually have the input for a native, because otherwise you will be translating, which we actually found a lot of the situations when we were doing just translation, words that are no longer used, or words that are used in certain parts of the world that speak the same language, but it's just simply not possible for other regions. So I think for us is actually respecting the different locations for real, like actually having native speakers reviewing and actually helping us to grow the product from the point of view of having a product that is localized for each region.
Dina, do you want to give us it's your core business, so definition of app localization, and then we can go over the example.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, that Tomatum, this is the core business of Tomatum. We only do localization and then we publish it in the MENA region. So other than what Sebastian said, what Luigi said, we do the game localization in terms of the story. We localize the story. That's what happened with Hollywood Story, actually, with Sebastian. And then we do text localization. And this is very sensitive because you can't go into sensitive topics in specific regions. So each region accepts some kind of content that other regions don't. So you have to be aware of that. And then you do the UI localization, environment, characters, art, and everything that's related to the game in order to make it ready for your target market. So that's localization. If you go to the next slide, maybe I can talk more about Fashion Queen. So here in Fashion Queen, we had to localize the characters in order to make it suitable for the MENA region. So some, let's say, characters would be frowned upon in our target market. So we had to localize those characters with the help of the Nanobit team, of course. So in the first image, you see a female hairdresser with wearing a hot shorts. And she has tattoos all over her body. So we changed that into dressing her with jeans. And there's another waitress that she has a crop top on, and she's showing too much skin. So we had to cover that. So this is only few of the things that we did for Fashion Queen. In terms of characters, we did a lot of story localization. Yeah, that's it.
Amazing. Yeah, that's a really good example. I guess, Luigi, you also got examples like comparing, I don't know, your app between Brazil and China and Japan and different regions, right?
We actually, not in terms of localization only, but other things that we had to adapt as, especially because Asia likes fair skin. So if you took a picture, like someone like me would look white. I'm not white. I'm Latin. So that was a huge problem for us in the beginning. We actually had to go through that local, which is also localization, which is understanding that Latam countries or European countries or even the US, we would not want to be white. We want to be our own color, but with other things that we want to add. Like if you want to add something, you know, add it here and there. You don't want to look a different color. So that was a big challenge for us actually for a while. But in the end, we won.
Amazing, amazing.
I think that's the core of localization, like knowing your target market and learning what do they need, and then adapting your app and doing those changes for your target market.
Yeah, exactly. And we will cover more about that later on. So following with the debate, a lot of people like maybe misunderstand and relate localization with translation like straight. And we would like to share with the people why we believe localization is not translation, is not the same. I don't know, Sebastian, Luigi, if you want to start here, what do you have to say here?
We have some very interesting examples, and we're actually going through another app of ours is going through an audit from all the languages that they are offering, an app called Vicus. So it's very interesting to see, like for example, they chosen when we choose Spanish, we choose Mexico Spanish because it's the amount of people. So when we're doing a translation, obviously, if you have the option of having Spanish Spain, you should also localize for that. But if you are looking, okay, I have limited resources and I want to translate for Spanish and Portuguese, go for Brazilian Portuguese and Mexican Spanish. So we have, and also like, if you're going from German, go for Germany, don't go for Austria or Switzerland. So like these things are very important because you're looking for volume. So when you're localizing so you can reach as much volume as you can. So we have like interesting things happening because we hire translators. For the first batch of translations, we actually we outsource to a company and we translate. Then we go through the native speakers. And then we're going through this phase where we're going through the native speakers. And then we find very funny stuff. Like in Portuguese, I found Portuguese from Portugal words that my grandmother uses, but we would not use it. You know, like come on, people are not using that word. You're looking and they're like, it's not possible. But you see, like these small little things, they make a huge difference because when you are translating, you're like actually looking at small data, right? You want to actually offer the best experience to the user that is in that location. You're not just getting something like from a big textbook and you're translating for someone that is going to probably be in a university or a college course, and then they have like a lot of time to read that. You need to be very, very to the point, very fast. The person needs to understand and act. You don't want them to, you don't want people to think. That's the reality. You want people to actually act. So when you're localizing, you actually want to be part of a person's life. You don't want to make them go into the dictionary or even consult their grandmother. Oops, just a second, I need to call my grandmother because I don't understand this word. You know? So it's something that we are going through this right now. German words as well. A lot of translations tricky because they get like German's very big, and it's the same as Sebastian was saying. We did have to do some adaptation that sort as well, but like German words, you need to be careful as well with all the Z and do, you know, the whole thing that they are more formal or how to be less formal. So I think when we are doing, like, for me, it's very important that we localize, and we do have the process, but translation is very, very different. Very, very different
Yeah,
from local.
it's
Yeah, I
really interesting
absolutely.
that.
Okay,
Sorry.
just to say, I absolutely agree with Ludi here. That's why we have like multiple iterations of localization. So with our partners, usually we first localize, then we get another company just to go through all the localization to check it one more time. Not only the if the spelling is correct or grammar, but to check the content as well. So is this really needed? This phrase isn't used as much as it was used before and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really important how you deliver the products to the customer, not only just to translate everything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just a comment over there. It's interesting. We got analyzing a client that like only work on translation and not that much in like with native speakers and so on. We have seen common mistakes, like for example, if we are talking of a video editor app and you get then in the stores that they translate everything and in their title they have like video shooting, for example, and shooting is more a word when you are thinking on ASO or Apple search ads campaigns, you are more like that term is more related to shooting games instead of a video editor app. So it's something that you need to keep in mind, that localize an app or a game is not just translated. I don't know, Dina, here you want to add more from your experiences at Tamaten?
Yeah, this is exactly what I was about to say. Like, you have to look at the bigger picture instead of just translating the text. Once, if you're a translator and you're trying to localize a game, you cannot just translate word by word. That won't make sense to the player. He just reads a couple of sentences and then they won't know what to do. So you have to look at the bigger picture. What is your, like, who's your target? Are they like RPG gamers or MMORPG gamers or first person shooter? So you have to know who's your target and then translate. Also, you have to like custom differs from one region to another. So you have to know if a certain subject is sensitive in a specific region and you have to avoid that subject. That's really important because if you're targeting X region and they have a certain subject that's very sensitive that you cannot talk about and you include that in your game, they're going to be furious, either delete the game or like just contact you first and then delete the game. Eventually you're going to lose that player. So you have to know what to include in your game when you're targeting regions. Study the customs and the like what's sensitive in that region, and then localize.
Yeah, that makes completely sense. And then if you lose them, and for some of this reason, it's going to be really, really hard to catch them again, to bring them back to your app
Definitely.
or your game. So it's really important to have it in mind.
Yeah.
Awesome. So following up on the content and related to that, I'd like to add some about localization for user acquisition and the importance of relevant creative for each region. So localization is something that also happens in user acquisition, and we believe that it happens that in two main aspects. First of all, the channel logic, like each channel has its own logic and its own tone and its own way to catch the user attention. So it's, for instance, it's not the same to advertise, I don't know, in TikTok than in programmatic. So it's really important also to localize the messages and to localize the pictures and the videos and the way you try to grab their attention. But also when talking about the creatives itself, localization plays a key role here. Like as you mentioned, it's really as you mentioned, Dina, it's really important to understand the each geo idiosyncrasy and customs and ways to behave and ways to talk. So I don't know, for example, a creative with focus on Halloween can have really good impact in the United States, but not as that in another geo. It's not like something that you can run worldwide. Um, Also, something that we believe is important to do is to lean on the each trend and local messages and on each geo as well. Like if you tailor your creative messages to each geo, you can expect more success on your user acquisition campaigns. And this requires a really hard work with your and tight and close work with your partners and the media sources. And lastly, also it's important to work on localized offerings. Like, I don't know, if you're a food delivery, like maybe focus your creatives on each typical food of each region that you are advertising. Or if you're a game developer, just try to add to your characters some like typical or typical things of each geo. Like, I don't know, I remember some cases that we have worked with our clients, but in the World Cup for Brazil, we work with we add some soccer stuff to the characters. Then in Mexico, Mexican hat to the characters. So it's also tailor and localize the offering. I don't know here if you want to add something as well about how to tailor creatives and localize creatives in user acquisition as well. Luigi, Sebastian.
It just came to my mind. Same goes with push notifications, for example, which is not user acquisition, but we also modify them according to the region. So you won't send the 4th of July notification, return to the game and celebrate and give diamonds or some hard currency in the game to all the regions. You will send it to USA. And then when the national holiday is in some other country, you can tailor the specific offer for them and stuff like that. So you can just like make it special and target each region independently.
Actually,
special dates.
Native speakers to be listening to Spotify 10 top, like the top music, because that way they can actually have some ideas about push notifications, and it works really well. Because then obviously it's what people are hearing, right? It's what people are listening. So it works really well. Yeah, we do localize everything for UA. Obviously, we have a whole. So we have teams everywhere, not everywhere, but in the most relevant countries for us, and we actually have native speakers. So everything's localized, reviewed, and then we can actually be tending to the people in the different regions. We're very careful with localization. Is part of our strategy. So I really believe and I push the team to be always paying attention to it.
Amazing. Okay. Following up, so something important and that a lot of companies ask is like, how do you decide when to localize your app or your game and when not to, and when is not time to do it? I don't know, Sebastian, Luigi, if you can share experiences from your companies, how do you decide when to localize? Sebastian first.
Yeah, the first thing, like in every part of the development, is a research, right? So our marketing department usually does the research, and we see potential in certain countries, and then we decide if we want to localize there or not. We check out other products which are localized there, how popular are they, how our user bases differ from country to country, and then we can see how much users we already have in a country, how much is our reach, how much is the CPI and our campaigns ROI in those countries. And after that, we recognize which countries we want to localize first, We localize the store pages and the store materials as well, because that contributes obviously to a better positioning of the game on the stores. So yeah, we localize all the materials. We test it out. We test out the creatives in each country. Then we see which performs the best. And actually, then we do it step by step, country by country, and measure the impact. And that's basically it.
Awesome. Luigi, I know you have here a slide of example for airbrush. How do you decide to localize?
So we first, it's very similar to what Sebastian is saying. We actually do look at the ROI first, and the potential of growth, the amount of users, the amount of penetration of like iOS and Android, and the purchasing power as well. So we actually compare. We have I study economics, right? So I actually did like a lot the Big Mac index. So we actually have the Big Mac index adapt inside airbrush to decide whether or not we're going to be going to countries. So basically for us, US obviously was in English first, and Chinese, traditional Chinese simplified, because we are a Chinese company. And then we started looking at different potential in Europe and Latam. So, and yeah, obviously it's better ROI, right? So we decided to build a process where we would be working the different languages using a streamlined process. So we actually have the UI designers involved, the developers involved, and the creative copy team involved. So for the different languages and regions.
Really nice. Dina, I don't know if you want to add something about MENA region as well, the potential of localize there.
Of course, you have to study the market, see what's missing in the market before you decide to localize the game. In Tomatum, we study if we request the numbers of the original game, because we localize games that are already successful in other regions, and then decide whether the game is going to be, if localized, is it going to lose its essence, or is it going to stay as is in terms of gameplay? Is it going to stay interesting? So some games, in my opinion, they don't require a localization. Games such as, for example, Candy Crush. If you localize it, you're not gaining much. But a game that has a backstory, or it has a lot of text in it, the user is going to relate so much better if it's in their language, in their mother tongue. So I think you need to decide on whether the app is you're going to be able to make a difference by localizing it or not, and if the game is going to be performing as good as it is performing in its original language.
Very good example. Thank you.
Yes.
So once you localize, how do you measure the localization impact? Like, how do you check if the process was successful or not? Sebastian.
Well, based on the Hollywood story localization, which we had in the last year, we could see much better ROI in localized countries. We saw that we can get really good users for a really low CPI. So we kind of seen the organic user growth as well in those countries. Before we localized the store and everything, we didn't have much organic users, but once we put up all the descriptions and videos and screenshots localized at the store, tested it out, it contributed to the organic user base as well. Yeah, and since the CPI was really low, we could get a lot of users and achieve all of our benchmarks. And of course, we tested it out many times, different creatives, and see which one is best performing in each country, then change it according to that. And that's kind of what we measured after localization.
Yeah, that's really that's a really good example. Just a comment over there. We have also tested like in some countries, like I don't know, Germany, France, and Spain, or we have tested like German localized creatives against the same creatives with the English word, like because those are countries that the English speaker population is good, or the English level is good. But once we tested once again to the other one, we have seen much more better results as well on the creatives that has the local language. And it's not only the local language, like just translate it from, it's also check it by native speakers and trying to use the same tone as the people use on their normal life. So yeah, it's a way to measure. It's not only like all the performance of your campaigns from the relevance or from the how attractive are your creatives that you can measure by CTR or CR, but also until the if these creatives or these campaigns encourage your users to pay, are much more better when you have localized creatives. Luigi, what about in Airbrush? I also have your charts here in the presentation.
Yeah, we actually decided on these two slides you have were the last measure localizations we did. We actually got invited to check our process of localization by Apple. So that's why you have that. So basically, we decided to go for Russia because of the amount of downloads we were getting. And we actually started doing some influencer campaigns first, and the Russian market react really well. And then as you see, like there you have the orange bar, and then I think the influencer campaigns were like the second bar there. We were like thinking, okay, let's go to Russia. The number of downloads in the world is it's like in App Annie you could see Russia was growing, and at that point I thought it was a good idea to expand. So we actually hired a local team, and we started doing some influencer campaigns, and we started doing the localization of the app, and the result is just the amount of sales, which is very clear there, and it's been growing ever since. We obviously have the Q1 there is Q1 is always tricky, but like we did have a growth in Russia, and it was mainly due to localization. And obviously we started looking at the organic growth of how this worked, and then we started investing, and we did some user acquisition as well and more influencer campaigns. So it's very clear localization works for us. And Russian was
Excellent.
it's a big language, very tricky to the UI. So we had to get everyone involved and actually have the designers and the native speakers. It was a bit of a war because it's huge. So we had to do a lot of adaptation for Russian.
Outstanding,
The
yeah. And also you get Germany here. Yeah.
Yeah. The next one was we actually did Russian before German. So and then German, we were under the same assumption as Sebastian. They speak English enough. We are not going to be focusing in them right now. And then by somewhere around 2019, I think I started pushing the team to think about Germany as a strategic market that we wanted to expand. It does help that I speak some German, so I was like, let's do Germany. I can help a little bit. And then so we started doing the research, and we thought, okay, let's do Germany. And then we first hired a German translator. Then we actually had a German local asset to help us. And we reviewed everything to be, we had the whole Z and do, Z is very formal, do is the informal part. So we tried to have the app with both kind of mix. So we're actually now reviewing that strategy, because I think we should go for the do more, like go more informal. So we are, but we saw a lot of impact as well. It was very, very interesting.
I guess something really important that Sebastian mentioned is the virality as well on the key factor that you got. If you localize to a market, then it's not only the users that you acquire or that you reach at the beginning, but also the word of mouth and all the organic traffic that is going to be bring to your app as well. Dina, I don't know if you have some examples of MENA market as well on or how you measure or help your clients to measure the impact in the market.
We technically compare our app once we localize it and publish it in the MENA region to the original game. Usually we aim to do higher than what's expected in, for example, the US market. and definitely more than the MENA region, like what they had, like the original game's number in the MENA region, because it wasn't localized. This is a very important factor for us comparing our game to the original one. It's supposed to have similar numbers and benchmarks, technically.
Amazing. Yeah. Makes sense. All right, guys. I guess we are all covered with the material that we want to share today, and we got some questions here for all the audience. You can keep writing, but I'm can read for you. Let me see. Here I got the first question. So, how do you choose the appropriate monetization strategy for each market? Oh, sorry. Who wants to? That's a good question. Monetization related to localization. Who wants to start? Sebastian, Sergi, Dina.
Well, same as a lot of other stuff, we do testing. So we can test out the original version of the game with the same prices and packages we have in the English version. We can try out to adjust the currencies and everything, more stuff you get in the game, less stuff you get in the game. We A/B test it, we see which one performs better. Then we kind of just, it's a hit and miss. You can try a few options, you can see which ones are better for the new market, which ones are worse, in which countries you have to reduce the prices, in which countries you have to raise the prices. So it's kind of a testing job, and it takes some time to figure out which country needs which prices and which performs better.
Yeah, that's
well, for us, we use the power purchasing parity. So when you look at the Big Mac index, you're looking at how much the Big Mac costs in Brazil, in the US, in China. So you have, like, we created a model based on that. So we also look at, we do testing for the different tiers and countries, thinking about the purchasing power compared to the prices, obviously to our competitors as well, depending on the market. We might be more aggressive, we might be less aggressive, we might test more in certain markets. We do a lot of price testing, as Sebastian said. We do, it's a lot of hit and miss. Our model, most of the time, it works because it's just the if you think it's like what people are willing to pay, right? So it's interesting to compare to certain other index. There are many. I myself like the Big Mac index and we use it, but there are several others, and you can also check for cost of living, minimum wage, and other things, and then test against those things, create models. I think like testing is the most important thing you need to do. Like, choose your audiences, test different UI as well, test different pricing, test everything. It's the basic of everything. Test.
Yeah, I guess something the purchase power of each region is really important when localize your monetization as well. So really good insight. I don't know, Dina, if you have something to add here.
They actually covered everything. I just want to emphasize on the A/B testing. It's really important in gaming in general, in every single aspect. So A/B testing is your key to enhance your game.
Great. I don't know why I lose the question Q&A. I'm gonna ask help to my marketing team. Juan, if you can read the other questions, but I can't open it. No? Yeah.
You hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So one question regarding the testing, it says, do you just test prices or you also consider changing the business model?
Well, it actually depends on the market and everything. If it's a big localization, such as Fashion Queen, we obviously think about changing the packages, content, but the core model pretty much stays the same. So yeah, we do some modifications, but we stick to the same model we have in the original usually.
Yeah. We did a change in one time we actually did. Because when you're thinking about developing economies, it's more complicated to go full on subscription. For example, Airbrush has a subscription model. So we did have to adapt to certain developing economies. And but in the end of the day, we decided to stick to one business model. We did test for other business models, but even though the potential of developing economies is something that we should be obviously everyone looking at it, for us the trade-off was just not enough.
For Fashion Queen, for example, we took the original game and we kept the prices the same because it's proven that it's doing well in other regions. And with time like passing by, we try to optimize the prices. We try to change it according to our users, and we try changing as well the subscriptions. Now we're at a phase like we're studying how to change that according to our users' feedback. So it's not a definite answer of yes or no. It's you have to consider your game, study it, and then decide on whether you want to change the business model or not.
Yeah, and then just a comment about the performance and the user acquisition. Something that we've seen comparing the regions is that from one region we can spare more. If you are talking in gaming, for example, we can expect more in-app purchases, and then in other regions we can expect more people watching ads, but not as much like purchasing or payers. So that changed the optimizations and the users that you want to bring to your game for each region. So from one region, you can pay a higher CPI because you can expect more payers, but then for another one, you need to focus on CP, on get the cheapest users in order to be profitable as well in the other regions. So depending on the percentage of the monetization that works best for each region.
Yeah, definitely. We have a game that's called Home Design Expert. We're targeting Southeast Asia countries as well. So, and we're targeting MENA region. But in the MENA region, it's quite difficult to have interstitials every other level. The user is going to get frustrated, your attention is going to get low, and they're going to just delete the game. So we remove interstitial from the game. But for Southeast Asian countries, they're used to interstitials and they're used to ads. So you make the best out of it and you keep it. So we're testing like 50% users who have interstitials and 50% who don't. And then you take your final decision.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Juan, do we get more questions?
Yes. Here one says, Ludi mentioned about a Big Mac index for apps, and Sebastian mentioned that the marketing team analyzes the markets. What are the main metrics you look to define where to localize your app? How do you get some of those metrics? Example, CPI.
Who wants to start, Luigi or Sebastian?
I can start. We do the internal model, as I said before. We choose for purchasing power, the amount of iOS and Android users. We look at, we do some testing first using influencers and a small campaign, paid ads, check for CPI. If we usually check for CPI, we don't go all the way to CPA. Although we are a subscription app, so we will eventually get to CPA as the final metric that we're interested in. But we do, we check the CPI, we do performance for influencers, and we check the CPI on the influencer side as well. And on top of that, we see if the conversion rate is interesting in terms of installs to users, and if the retention of the country is also interesting. So we do have certain metrics that we pay attention to. So I'll say CPI, retention, purchasing power.
Awesome. Sebastian?
Yeah, we actually use certain tools such as Sensor Tower and some other to check out the other games and to check out how much impact did some localization have in other games in other countries, and then we check out the market according to that and see if we have some success, if we would have some success in going in there or not. But usually, yeah, it's mostly testing, and as Ludi said, so I have pretty much nothing to add to that.
Great.
Juan, another question?
I have quite a few now. Is globalization impacting localization? Do you imagine a world which we all want to access the same content?
I'm gonna cut the presentation so we can see our faces. So can you repeat, Juan?
Is globalization impacting localization? Do you imagine a world in which we all want to access the same content?
Okay, go on, Dina.
Yeah, sorry. I don't think that globalization for all game genres works. Eventually, you're going to have some kind of feature that won't go well in a certain geo, but it's going to work well in another. But there are some games that globalization will work on it. Like I said earlier with Candy Crush, for example, it's such a simple game that you don't need to localize. But other very hardcore games that have a lot of text, localization, in my opinion, is very important for the engagement of the user to increase, and they would feel more connected to that game.
What do you think about? Sebastian, what do you think about?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, pretty much I agree with Dina on this one. I mean, it's really important across different cultures to have a modified version of the game, and I don't think the globalization will, at least soon, happen in a way that everyone will have the same content, since it's really a big difference in countries, as we can see by the results we have today. So for now, no, but in the future, who knows? Yeah, we'll see.
Luigi, we miss you for a while.
Yeah, sorry, I got disconnected. We were having a situation with the internet, apparently.
No,
But
I don't know if you heard the question about if globalization is impacting localization. If you imagine a world in which all want to access the same content.
Oh, I hope not. I don't want anyone to become robots, right? I do think we think in the future, I would really expect that we have all the diversity in the world respected, and that all the diversity in the world could be understood by everyone, but we could all keep our individual cultures, and we could actually have apps catering to these individual cultures. I would expect, well, I would definitely hope that we're not all consuming the same things. I really do not hope the world to become, I don't know, Brave New World, where everyone is stacking little, categories, and you're A, you're B, you're C, and then everyone is supposed to be following. So I would really hope that we respect all cultures and diversity in content. So that's, yeah. Going too philosophical, I'm sorry, but I feel a little bit of desperation when everyone is dressing the same or acting the same or having the same thoughts, because I do believe the world can only grow in diversity.
Amazing. So another question here, we got time. Luigi mentioned an example of success in Russia. Can you mention some examples in which you localize and you failed, or it always worked?
I think I haven't actually thought, I haven't actually saw anything failing in localization. We did at one point decided that we're going to go for Turkish, and then everything was pointing to the direction that it was a good idea, but we ran some campaigns before actually going full on, and we gave up because of the amount of the CPIs and the amount of fraud that we found. So we didn't want to deal with a market that we would have to be more careful with other things. So at that point, we decided not to go through with the localization. So I wouldn't say it's failed. It's just a plan that was postponed.
Got it. Perfect. Now, Sebastian, Dina, if you want to mention some examples like that.
Actually, we have a game that was published early on this year. We thought it's going to do really well, but it didn't. It was originally a Korean game. It's a supermarket managing kind of game, ex-RPG. So it was quite unusual to have both games together in one game. The game originally performed really well in Korea because it had like kittens for main characters, or cats. And we decided not to change the characters at first and see how it performs in the MENA region, but it actually didn't perform really well. So we paused that project up until like we decide what to do. But for now, it's paused, and I wouldn't consider that a fail. Maybe it doesn't always work, actually. So yeah.
That makes sense, yes. Because we don't want all the same content.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. So I got another one here. Regarding ads localization, how much do you localize the ads versus the store listing? Is it different across channels? Well, I can start with this. I guess, as I mentioned, like the channel logic plays a really important role here, and each channel requires like its own way to localize the content. Not only so you lean on the trends and the languages and all the about the geo, but also the channel. It's really important. As I mentioned, if you're gonna run an ad in TikTok, it's gonna be really TikTok oriented and showing like your product in a TikTok way. And then in the other side, you got a programmatic channel where the audience is different, or maybe it's a rewarded video and the people is already playing. So you need the way that you catch their attention is different from the language, but also the channel logic versus the store. I read on the question, the store listing, of course, also plays a really important role. If you can get your users, the potential users, to the store, and then they come up to the store and they don't find it relevant, or they don't find it attractive, or close to them in the way that they talk and they speak and they are used to in that region, maybe you don't get it. You don't get the install, or you don't get that conversion. So it's both are really important from the very beginning of the funnel, of the impression of the channel, and then in the store, how do you localize your store? It's not only, as we were talking, it's not only translated a text box, it's also communicate them in the way that they used to. I know if you have examples as well, you want to add something, any of you.
We actually we localize a lot of ads. For example, for Fashion Queen, we took the original ads from Nanobit and we localized them. We add music, we add voiceover, we add new content to the ad itself in order to make it suitable for the region. So yeah, we do a lot of localization on the ads and the store listing. We localize the previews, the store video as well, promo graphics and feature graphics and everything that's related to the store listing. So localizing an app is not only localizing the app itself, but whatever goes around it in terms of ads and store listing and everything around it.
Great.
Okay. Yeah, very much the same, I would say. We do the localization of everything. So I'm actually going to reach out to Dina later to talk about Arabic countries.
For sure. All right, we got time for one last question here. Well, what type of research can you do to understand your target market better? Well, I guess you already answered, right? Or the purchase power and so on. But I don't know, something to add? All right, so another one. What's the general granularity for localization? Region, country? That's the question. I don't know who wants to take it first.
Can you repeat the question, Leo?
Yeah. What's the general granularity for localizing? region, country? That's the question.
Well, it actually depends. I'll go first. Obviously, if you are localizing in Portuguese, you are aiming not only Portugal, but Brazil and some other countries. So you are not localizing just one country, but a lot of countries. Then you have to take a lot of things into the consideration, act differently in each of those countries, but you're localizing on a bigger scale for that. Same goes for MENA region. When we localized Fashion Queen, we localized for many countries and the whole region. And it was like a tricky deal because one country can perform really great in the beginning, then you can find out that the other country is doing much better, and you have to figure out the differences. And if you are not in those markets like local, you don't have any insights, it's really hard to do it. And in some cases we go just for one country and it shows a success, so it really depends. But usually you are not localizing just one country. I think you hit more countries with one localization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, something that I would add there is like, I guess you start, because of the question, I guess you start like broader, and then you like maybe divide into regions, and then you find within that region some countries or some, I don't know, granularity, and maybe you need one country in terms of performance. At least you won't run straight a campaign localized from only one country, but then if you are broad and then you start for a region and then you see potential in one specific country, you can localize. So it's going to be based on performance mainly. All right, guys, so we got more questions. We will try to we will answering via email because we are almost on time. So thank you very much, you all, for participating on this webinar, and thank you to all the audience. As I mentioned at the beginning, all the content is being recorded and we will be send it to you via email. And well, hope you see you on the next webinar. Thank you again, guys, for participating.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Nice to have you here.
Bye.
Bye.